She is the founder of Fish Field, which is the first organization to focus on education about the sentience and wonder of fish. A greatly needed topic, much overlooked, and very, very fascinating. But I'm personally delighted to have Mary with us because we first met about 40 years ago in Washington, D.C., when I would go down a week or two early to volunteer in the office of the National Alliance for Animals before their annual conference. And Mary was volunteering there as well. And we met and got to know each other there, and we would see each other every year at the conferences. And so it's been a 4 decades relationship over the miles, and I'm just so thrilled to see her again in person, and for all of you to share her message. I wanted to also say, we're so pleased with our 30th anniversary Boston Veg Food Fest to have gotten a citation from the governors. And they wrote it so lovely. I'm just going to quickly read it to you, so bear with me. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the Boston Vegetarian Society. On behalf of the residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation in recognition of the 30th anniversary of the Boston Veg Food Fest. Founded in 1988, your all-volunteer nonprofit has provided years of advocacy for and education about clean and conscious eating. During this celebration, you provide a fun and welcoming way to learn about how what we choose to eat can affect our personal health and the world around us, the environment, the climate, and the animals. The Commonwealth thanks you for your positive impact you have made and you have on our community, and wishes you another successful event. Signed by Maura Healey, Governor, and Kimberly Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor. Isn't that nice? Yeah. We also got a mayoral proclamation from the city of Boston. So that's also nice, but I won't read it out loud. If you missed Naoko's cooking demo at the last hour, we have some of her recipes that are on the table. They'll also be on the BBS table downstairs. And I'll just mention, since it wasn't publicized otherwise, that if you missed Dr. Michael Greger this morning, he will be coming back tomorrow on Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. doing book signing and answering questions. So if you missed seeing him today, or you know anyone who would like to see him, come tomorrow. He'll be here. And yeah.
He sold out of a couple of the books this morning. Will he have more tomorrow?
No, I'm afraid we ordered them directly from the publisher, and they wouldn't get here by tomorrow. Yeah, we're bummed that they sold out, but happy as well. And now, our main feature, Mary Finelli of Fish Field.
Thank you, Evelyn, very much for that very kind introduction. And thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your interest in fishes, and especially for your concerns for them. You know, a lot of times when people give up eating beef or pig, cows or pigs, they start eating more birds and fishes, and that's actually even more problematic in some ways. For the plight of birds, I'll refer you to the wonderful organization United Poultry Concerns, but I'm here today to talk about the plight of fishes and how it affects us all and things we can do about it. So the name of our organization is Fish Field. And I mean, fishes are so diverse, such an immense diversity of fishes. There's over 35,000 known species of fishes, and you can see just from the 4 pictures how diverse they are. They include animals that people oftentimes don't realize are fish. Rays and eels and seahorses and leafy sea dragons, and you can get an idea of just how diverse they are. There's more fishes than all the other vertebrate species combined, more fish species than all the other vertebrate species combined. There's also a lot of myths about fish. For example, that goldfish have a 3-second memory. But they've actually been shown to be able to remember things a year later. So they have long-term memory, and also these fish, for example, are frilled fin gobies, and they are tidal pool species. They live in a tidal pool, and while it's high tide, they memorize the topography of the pool, and when the tide goes out, they remember so that they know where the next deep pool is, so they don't get dehydrated. Whereas they're trying to escape a predator, they remember the topography. And just after one initial visit, they can remember that for 40 days. So that's a good example of long-term memory. Also, you think of migratory fishes like salmon and tunas. They can be gone for thousands of miles, and years later, they remember how to get back to their places of birth. So very impressive long-term memory. Also, fishes have very sophisticated learning abilities. This example is an archer fish, and you can see what they do is they shoot down prey from overhanging vegetation, and you have to take into account the trajectory of their aim and also the refraction of the water. And I'm just going to read you this quote here quickly. So archer fish hunts with working knowledge of motion, gravity, optics, and fluid dynamics, effortlessly solving problems that might keep a physics student up at night. It uses science to give itself superhuman, or rather superfish strength, like the hawkeye of the animal kingdom. It's always on target and never runs out of arrows. And they're actually able to increase the skill by observing more experienced fishes. Also, tool use. This is a tusk fish, and what they do is they'll find the clams and they'll travel a considerable distance to find an appropriate rock to break the shell open. So that's a great example of tool use. Self-awareness. Fishes have passed what's considered the gold standards of self-awareness in animals. So I really can't imagine, personally I can't imagine any animal that's not aware of themselves. It's absurd. But anyway, they have this mirror test where they, for example, they put a spot on the fish's throat that's only observable by looking at a mirror, a reflection. And these fishes have been able to go up and see the mirror and recognize there's something on their throat and make efforts to get rid of it. Cultural knowledge. Fishes pass knowledge from generation to generation. For example, the best routes to spawning grounds and things like that. And fishing tends to target the biggest, oldest fishes. So by taking them out of the population, they're really impeding that ability of knowledge transfer. Parental care. There are fishes who are really valiant parents. These are stickleback fishes. They will build nests for their young, and then they'll actually go down and oxygenate the eggs with their fins, and very protective of them. There are fishes who are mouth brooders. They will actually incubate the eggs in their mouth. Some of them will go weeks or even months without eating. And once the babies go out, they'll, if they're a predator or something around, they'll actually call the fishes back and take them back into their mouth to protect them. There's fish cooperation. These are, for example, rabbit fishes, and they will take turns foraging while one stands guard and there's no one fish around. There's also interspecies cooperation. For example, groupers and moray eels. They're both reef species. So the grouper will have a hard time getting into the reef crevices and all, but he will go over and he or she go over and motion to the eel. They do like a little thing, headstand kind of thing, and motion to the eel. And sometimes they have to be kind of persistent, and they get the eel to go with them, and the eel can get into the crevices and either catch the prey or chase the prey out. And they're much more successful working together than separately. Groupers are also known to do similar with octopuses. Another example of interspecies cooperation is cleaner fishes. They will go and clean fishes, take off debris they might have on them, new scales, parasites, that kind of thing. And the cleaner fishes, they'll get a meal from that, and the other fishes will get very necessary grooming. It's really beneficial for their health. And they've been shown that even after these cleaner fishes are just remarkable. They can, they'll have set up like a cleaning station, and the fish will line up for it, and they can remember like 100 individuals, and they can do like 400 cleanings a day. And they've shown that even after the fish are clean, they'll come back just because they so enjoy the grooming, just for the pleasure of the grooming. So it's a good example of fishes can experience pleasure. Shouldn't be surprising. They're not species that still do this with humans, obviously. Fishes are friendly and inquisitive. People that go diving regularly in the same areas often get to know the fishes, and the fishes will come up and visit with them. And also, people who have ponds and dogs, like sometimes the dogs, they don't have food to offer or anything, they just enjoy the pleasure of their company. A great book about how interesting and amazing and admirable fishes are is What a Fish Knows by Jonathan Goffin. He's an ethologist, and he was reading all these scientific papers about fishes and he thought if the public realized, if the public knew how incredible they are, it would so change their perception of fishes. It is a New York Times bestseller, and it's been translated into a lot of different languages. Just really a treasury of information. Back in 2010, Victoria Braithwaite, she's professor of fisheries and biology, and she was professor of fisheries and biology at Penn State University. Unfortunately, she passed away, but back in 2010, she published this book, Do Fish Feel Pain? It's very eloquently explaining the very compelling scientific evidence that fishes are indeed sentient, and since then there's been even more evidence of it. Fishes are, similar to us. They share a complex nervous system. They have pain receptors. They produce their own opioid painkillers. They behave in ways that indicate they're suffering when they're exposed to painful stimuli, and they quickly learn to avoid painful stimuli. Fishes also feel fear and distress, so even for someone who would deny the preponderance of scientific evidence that fishes are sentient, it's plain to see if you ever see a fish caught or anything, they're in distress, and that's reason enough not to probably read this one. Tragically, fishes are by far the largest category of harmfully exploited vertebrate animals. They're subjected to some of the worst abuses, and they receive the least public concern or legal protection. They're not covered by the Humane Slaughter Act, they're not covered by the Animal Welfare Act, they're exempt from many of the state anti-cruelty statutes. Annually, it's estimated between 1 to 2 trillion, and that's actually a conservative figure, fishes are caught from the wild. It's just an astronomical number of fishes. And about half of these, by number, are used to make fish meal and fish oil. And that's large, much of that is used to feed farmed fishes and other farmed animals. And additionally, 124 billion farm fishes are killed for human food. And that's not counting the ones that die before they're slaughtered, which is they have a very high mortality rate. This is the basic ways that they catch fishes commercially. Long lines, there are long lines that go out for miles with thousands of hooks on them, or gill nets that drop down and the animals swim into them and get caught on them, or trawlers, which you just drag along the ocean bottom, picking up whoever happens to be there and destroying corals that can take thousands of years to create. They now have what are called factory ships. These ships can catch fish and process them and freeze them. They can be out there for months or even a year. They have this huge immense nets that catch the fish, and they have little ships that will come and bring them supplies and take the catch back, so they can be out there for a long, long time. And along with all the fish they're trying to catch are what's called bycatch, all these other animals that are incidentally caught and basically are thrown back dead or dying or used for fertilizer or something like that. It's just astronomical numbers. Every year they estimate that bycatch kills 250,000 turtles, 100 million sharks, 300 million small whales and dolphins, and also 320,000 seabirds. This is just for example for that handful of shrimp. That's from the other animals we talked with. Shrimp fishing is notorious for bycatch. And in addition to that are the animals who are killed intentionally because they're competing with humans for fish. Cormorants and dolphins, sea lions, they all need to eat fish. Most of us don't need to. If our own good, we shouldn't be eating them. Aquatic species are really in decline. They're really desertifying the oceans. Marine life populations declined by 50% in the last 50 years. Migratory freshwater fish populations declined an average of 76%. We really are just wiping out the oceans. And the cause of the species decline for the aquatic species is fishing. Global sea catch, wild catch began to increase in the 50s with increased technology and larger fishing fleets. And it peaked in 1996 and has been decreasing ever since because, again, we've desertified the oceans. Because of this, and having to travel further and further to catch fish and paying more for, energy costs, refrigeration, and fuel and everything, to try to make a profit, corners, human slavery is rampant in the fishing industry. A lot of that catch is sold here. It's basically untraceable. The Associated Press did an expose of it and won the Pulitzer Prize. They showed that, remember these big fishing fleets, the factory ships can be out there for such a long time. So once these guys are out there, they're really at the mercy, if there is any mercy, of the captains. And the Associated Press did an investigation and showed that when these ships actually did go back to dock, they were taking these guys to an island and literally putting them in cages. So this is human slavery. The New York Times did a series on it, and fortunately it's getting more and more publicity, but it's still a huge, major problem. And again, a lot of that catch is sold here, basically untraceable. People are looking to aquaculture, fish farming as a solution, but in actuality, it's a huge part of the problem because such a huge percentage of the wild-caught fishes are used as feed for farm fishes and farm shrimps and other farm animals. So it's really propping up these other farm animal industries too. So many problems, so many environmental problems with fish farming. They're just cramming these animals into these spaces, which is extremely inhumane. And then they have a high mortality rate, so the dead fish in there and the uneaten food and the feces that all seems to be body creating these dead zones underneath the pens. And these fish can't escape if there's like terrible weather incidences or jellyfish invasions, they're trapped in there. And to try to keep them alive, they're feeding them antibiotics and all kinds of other drugs just to try to keep them alive long enough to get them big enough to slaughter. And then, of course, there's the residues with that. Here's another example of this is pond fish farming. And you can see what that looks like, and you can imagine how unhealthy it is for the fish and how unhealthy it would be also for anyone who would be eating them. They're going more and more now towards indoor fish farming, tank farming. You can imagine you can see how barren these environments are. For these amazingly perceptive and inquisitive animals, and think how terribly cruel that must be for migratory animals. And they also have very high water usage, very high energy usage, so it's definitely not a way to go. And because they're putting so much intensive selection into these fishes for fast growth, it's causing all kinds of horrible genetic problems with all kinds of atrocities. Parasite infestations are rampant, and it's so bad they're just eating these animals alive. And when they're out in the outdoor pens, they can also transmit this to the wild animals, and sometimes it can escape if there's a rip in the tank or whatever, tank gets destroyed, the pen, and they can go out and outcompete some of the native fishes or interbreed with them, which also causes genetic problems. Because this infestation is so terrible, they try all kinds of parasite treatments for them, but sometimes these treatments are illegal. They're putting in like high temperature water or doing other things to the fish that are so stressed out can easily kill them. So now they're exploiting these other fishes. These are called the monkfish, and these fishes they'll eat the parasites. They're like the cleaner fishes, but these also have very high mortality. They have no real consideration or concern for them, for their well-being, and they just are being killed off in amazing ways too. Fishes are known to have depression. It's called dropout syndrome. And these are growth-stunted fishes that will float to the surface. And I'm just going to use this one more quote here. Their brain chemistry and behavior are analogous to the symptoms of depression documented in other animals. So again, that shows that they are capable of feelings. In fact, they're actually studying these fishes for relevant information to use for humans with depression. And how they die. In horrible ways. I mean, again, they're not covered by the Humane Slaughter Act, and there's really no consideration for these fish. They just kill them as easily and quickly as they can. Most wild caught fish are likely to die from being crushed in nets, or from suffocation, freezing, or live dissection after landing. This process will probably take many minutes or even hours. And most of the world's farm fishes are also killed by slow and inhumane methods such as suffocation, bleeding to death, electrocution, or just by being cut up alive. To quote Jonathan Safran Foer, the author of Eating Animals, you never have to wonder if the fish on your plate suffered. They did. There are certification schemes, but these schemes really don't take into consideration fish welfare concerns. They also have conflicting and obsolete advice and very dubious standards. According to Lake Stewardship Count, right on their homepage, they explain the Marine Stewardship Council label, the most recognized seafood sustainability eco-label, is increasingly being awarded to fisheries that routinely catch thousands of vulnerable marine animals, discard excessive amounts of sea life as waste, irreversibly destroy seafloor habitats, and continue to catch overfished species. This just gives you an example of comparative how many fishes are killed to other animals. It's a little outdated. Unfortunately, the source material hasn't been updated, so it's hard to get an update, but it's basically, essentially that's the case. Harish Sethu has a page. He's a wonderful statistician, and he has a page called Counting Animals, and he's very elegantly calculated that a vegetarian saves more than 225 fish a year, and that's largely because half of the fishes consumed in the U.S. are from fish farms, and so many wild caught fish are used to feed them. So when we're eating one fish, it's really many more fishes who are being killed for that one fish. So-called recreational fishing, an estimated 345 million saltwater fishes were caught non-commercially in the U.S. in 1 year, and the number of freshwater fish caught are non-commercially, I don't really know, but there's an estimated shown to be about 3 times as many people with fish as hunt. And you know, fishing, it's really not a sport. I mean, the fish aren't willing participants, and you can just imagine how incredibly painful it must be to be impaled, and then have your body hauled through the water by the hook while you're fighting for your life, and then you get pulled out, you're suffocating and manhandled. And people think that catch and release, if they put the fish back in the water, they're okay, but you know, that's not the case. Many of them die, and they all suffer immensely from the injury and the trauma. The big thing is kids fishing rodeos now, where they promote fishing for kids. They will have them free events. The Departments of Wildlife, such as the Departments of Natural Resources, put them on, and also police agencies and other organizations put them on where they have kids, and also veterans and seniors and women. They're just trying to get everybody they can to go fishing. They'll give them free fishing gear and have contests and give them hot dogs and stuff, but it's really encouraging children to abuse animals for fun. That's what it's all about. But we've gone to these events and we hand out coloring books with the anti-fishing message and fact sheets, and people are very receptive. It's not confrontational, because you know, if you go to these events and there's kids there, they're not going to, if you are confrontational, it's not going to go well, but they're very receptive. You know, they want to get a coloring book, and so it's a very low-key way to get the message across. An Underwater Friend is a book that actually my husband has written. He's written 4 children's books, and this one is about a boy who goes fishing with his father. He's so excited to go fishing, and they catch a fish, and then he sees how the fish is suffering. So they take the fish home, and they happen to have a backyard pond, and they put the fish in the water, and they help him recover, and then they release him again. You know, so all this cruelty and all this environmental harm and all this suffering for something that's not even good for us. Fish have mercury, dioxins, microplastics, parasites, these so-called forever chemicals now. Fish are a primary source of those chemicals. Also, cholesterol and saturated fat. It's, you know, fish is touted as healthy, but is anything but. About 90% of the seafood consumed in the U.S. is imported, but very little of it is inspected, and you saw those ponds were so unhealthy, so likely. And mislabeling is rampant too. It's been estimated that about a third of the seafood sold in the U.S. is mislabeled. So if you have an allergy or something and you're going by label, you know that you might be misled. Center for Science and Public Interest, they were doing food evaluations for illnesses, highest number of foods that cause human illness, and seafood consistently came out to be the food that caused the highest level of illness per consumption. Fish oil, a lot of people go for fish oil. It's one of the most popular, if not the most popular supplement in the U.S. And people take that, they think it's going to be, you know, a panacea for all these problems, but it's shown to really not be. And not only is it not helpful, but it's actually hazardous, because if you're taking fish oil, it can easily become rancid, and if it does become rancid, it can cause free radicals, which are potentially carcinogenic. And if you're taking it in like a gelatin capsule, you may not even realize that it's rancid. If you are interested in getting a supplemental omega, there's other vegan sources for that. Walnuts are a great source, or flaxseed oil, flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed. And if you want a concentrated dose, you can get algae supplements, which is how fish get their omegas. For people who like vegan seafood, there are virtually vegan versions of virtually any kind of seafood you can imagine. Usually we bring with us this pull-up of all the different, not all different, just examples of many different vegan seafood products that are available. We came from Maryland, so it was a little bit too much to bring all this. But if you go to our website, fishfield.org, we have hundreds of recipes and links to companies that make vegan seafood products. There are vegan seafood cookbooks, so anything you have a hankering for, there's a vegan version. Better for us, better for the other animals, better for the environment. It just makes sense. Here's an example of some of the vegan seafood products that are available. Here's more of them. There's such a huge variety, and more coming out all the time. These are a couple of the vegan seafood cookbooks that are available. The other one we actually have on the table, showing that one. The other one, the General Sea Cookbook, is a wonderful cookbook, but it's only available digitally, but it's really a terrific cookbook. There's so many problems for fish, really. I just want to touch on a couple more. Aquaria, you know, this is an example of betta fish, and they sell them in the stores like this, and you can see that these fish are languishing. In their native environment in Asia, they will live in rice paddies, you know, so it's shallow water but extensive, so they can go for miles and miles, and they're very territorial fishes. That's why they can't be put together with other fishes. But the males especially are territorial. But you know this is how they're sold, and people think it's okay to keep them like that. Not just a really bad example of it, but fishes in general. You know, both the wild caught fish that they get taken from the wild, and also the captive bred fish. There's so much needless animal suffering and death in both of these industries. So we tell people, if you want to keep fish and you can provide a decent home for them, then go to an animal shelter or a rescue group, or find someone on Craigslist or like that's looking to rehome fishes for free. There's a wonderful documentary, Dark Hobby, all about just how cool the wild caught trade for aquarium fishing. Animal experimentation, again, they're not covered by the Animal Welfare Act. Fishes, and while it's wonderful that they're getting away from testing on chimpanzees and dogs and some of these other animals, they're going more and more towards using these animals who are not covered by the Animal Welfare Act because they're cheaper and they reproduce quickly and there's no oversight. So, and they're subjected to all kinds of just horrific experimentation. So our organization, again, is Fishfield. We have a website, fishfield.org. We're very active on Facebook, and we hope you will not fish and not eat fish. And also please be an advocate for fishers, because they are so harmfully exploited. They're so desperately need all the help that we can give them. And we have campaigns we're running and fact sheets on our website and videos and just a kid's page, all kind of information on our website. So I hope you'll follow it. If you're on Facebook, I hope you follow us on Facebook. And if you have any questions, please contact us at info@fishfield.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone had any questions, I'll have to try to answer them. Yes.
Yes, can you say something about the effects of climate change on fish?
The change in temperatures of the seas and also the change in underwater sea currents.
Yes, thank you, it's a great question. The ocean is the first area of the world that's affected by climate change. It goes in there, and it's heating up the temperature, so a lot of it gets too hot for a lot of these fish to survive. And so the ones that can are migrating north, but unfortunately not all of them can migrate north. And also coral bleaching, with the heat, it's bleaching the coral, basically killing the coral, which is the home to like 25% of the fish species live on coral reefs. And so it's, wiping out their homes, and also carbon is really, the ocean is such a great sink for carbon. It stores so much carbon. And now that it's heating up, it's releasing so much of this carbon into the environment. And also, trying to get a word for it, it's, well, I can't think of it offhand, but it's making the ocean, it's making it more acidic. It's making the oceans more acidic. And these fish, for example, fish are having a hard time with it, but especially crustaceans with their shells. It's preventing them from being able to form their shells. Their shells are just dissolving. So it's a huge problem. And on top of all these other problems. And then there's pollution. The oceans are so full of microplastics, and also just one more problem, many more problems for oceans to the world to deal with, aquatic species. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'll just say I jumped.
I'll just make a comment that I jumped on your website to take a look at the recipes, and you've got like 80 tuna fish recipes and hundreds of fish and chips recipes, and all vegetarian, vegan, and I'm excited to try them.
Oh, thank you, I'm so glad. Thank you for checking it out. And I tell people we have hundreds of recipes, but there's maybe thousands of recipes on there by now. And it's amazing how imaginative and creative people are at replicating flavors and textures. And if you make your own vegan seafood, if you don't like that oceany flavor, you can put in seaweed. That really gives it that oceany flavor, or fishless fish sauce, and we have recipes for that on the website too. So thank you. Another thing, we, like I was telling you, when we go to these youth fishing rodeos, we hand out coloring books. So we also hand them out for trick or treat. And if anybody would like a supply, I think you can download them from the website or print them off the website. Or if anyone would like a supply, contact us, and we'll be glad to get a supply to you. It's like a great way to get the message across. And kids tend to be so receptive. Okay. Thank you.
So is there any, do you see progress or movement towards enlightenment about boiling lobsters alive? Because I think there was a demonstration of in Maine recently, in
Yes.
Portland. I've told Trader Joe's I'll buy their bags when they stop having, because in Massachusetts, it's a lobster being boiled in a pot in the Trader Joe's.
Oh, yes,
Every
thank you.
state has different laws.
Right. In Defense of Animals is really taking that on, a campaign against that. They have a coalition, we're actually in the coalition, to try to get, well, they're working mainly now with religious organizations, to try to get them to not do that for their fundraisers, So, and contacting supermarkets, if they have lobster tanks or something, to tell them that you really are offended everybody really distressed by these animals suffering that way, you know, so it really is, it's up to each of us to speak out as we can when we can, but in defense of animals really has been taking it on, and Peter's been active on that too, in some of the other organizations.
It's very big, because you said you're in Maryland.
Yes,
I know crabs are probably very popular. And
oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like the luxury cuisine is having lobster.
Right, and you know, mainly what people are looking for is like the butter flavor or the, yeah. So that's a gift to so many fish. They're mainly looking more for like the flavor of tartar sauce or cocktail sauce or something like that. We can easily make stuff with these. And now they're also trying to farm octopuses. You know, that's the new one. Yeah, and with so many of these species, they're farming hundreds of aquatic animals, and they really have so little knowledge about their veterinary needs, their well-being needs, and, you know, how to take care of these animals. They're just massive mortalities and suffering. It's just tremendous. But with the octopuses, at least there has been a lot of blowback, you know, from the scientific community. So that's really great. And they have banned it in California. I think on the West Coast it's banned, even though they don't actually haven't been farming octopuses there, they're just trying to preempt it, you know, start, you know, and they're really fighting it in the Canary Islands and Spain, and trying to really get these in Hawaii. They did actually try to start there, and that they were shown to be lying about where they were getting octopuses from, because they're not allowed to catch them from the wild when they actually get them doing. So at least they are really fighting that, but, you know, unfortunately, they're still trying. And octopuses tend to be solitary animals, so they, and when they're stressed out, they can actually cannibalize each other. So they're just, you know, they're such amazing, wonderful, sentient beings. So you know, hopefully we can at least keep that. Yeah.
Can you spend a little more time telling us how fish is bad for you, especially frogfish?
Oh, yes. Well, fish in general, you know, because they're, well, certainly notorious for high mercury counts. And because, you know, these toxins tend to bioaccumulate in animal tissue. So and with mercury, you know, what happens is mercury is really from coal-fired plants, and it goes into the water, and it transforms into the most toxic form, methylmercury. And that's what happens to the fish, and they're surely suffering from it. And it concentrates in the fish, and then people that eat that are getting a concentrated dose of that. If they keep it, then they build up and have all kinds of neurological problems and blindness. It's a horrible thing. Then there's these so-called forever chemicals. They're PFAS, I can't remember the technical name for them, but they're from like firefighting foam and Teflon and all these substances that release these chemicals that have been found even in pristine environments. They're finding these toxins. But they're particularly bad in water again and again, same situation by accumulating in fish. So they've been shown that fish are like the primary source of food source of these so-called forever chemicals, which also, of course, have horrible health effects for humans. And then dioxins and all the other toxins bioaccumulate in them. And also parasites, you know, you can get worms from, some of the ones are transmissible to humans. And cholesterol, saturated fat, you know, it's just really not a healthy thing. And all the nutrients that we get from fish and from animals in general, we can easily get from plant vegan sources. So, you know, if we can do that, why harm these animals and harm ourselves and we along with it? Any other questions? Well, thank you all again very much. Thank you.